let's kick it off with our fearless leader, Peter Gelb. Thank you for being here today. I just want to start off and ask you, how did this idea crawl into your brain? How did you imagine this? This, as Camille said, was the first, it was the best and the most fearless array of classical musicians. It was seen by 162 countries throughout the world. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, first, Dan, thank you for hosting us, and Camille, thank you for all the wonderful things that you do for us. You're truly a beacon of hope for the Met, and somebody who's so important to our lives and the life of the company. You know, like all ideas, they sort of come in stops and starts. I mean, I think what happened was a few weeks ago, I was lying in bed, having a sleepless night, which happens more frequently these days. I'm sure people watching who are joining us have the same problems. And it just seemed like ideas, they just popped into my head. And I remember waking up in the morning and calling Yannick up and telling him I had this idea, and he immediately embraced it, and together we took off, because I knew that we had to do it really fast to get it organized, and I wanted the Met to be first, of course, in doing something like this. And you know, it was a very, very challenging logistical effort. We actually invented, I'm not quite sure exactly which part of it we invented, but I kept being told by our production support team that we were inventing new applications of technology as we were going along, because what we wanted to do, the challenge that I put forth to our producing team, led brilliantly by Mia Bongiovanni, who oversees all of our media operations, was I wanted to be able to have a program that could actually connect multiple locations around the world, but without any normal equipment. So this was basically a Skype gala with on a very high level of Skype, and it had a lot of technical wrinkles to it, which I'm happy to talk about as much as I know about them. But it was basically 5 Skype lines going on all at once. The director, Gary Halverson, who directs all of our HD shows, was directing from his home in LA with screens that were magically appearing on his laptops of the various locations that we were going to. We had a production facility which typically supports us for our HD shows, a company called All Mobile, which had a technical director and a switcher and a few other things that you need for a live multiple camera location. And then we had this incredible array of cameramen around the world who actually were the singers, who were operating, who became their own technicians and camera operators. And it was, you know, and then there were the incredible contributions that Yannick made with not only as my fellow host, but as a performer, and guiding these incredibly moving montages that were made up of performances that he led of the individual members of the orchestra and the chorus, that really were kind of one of the hearts and soul of this program and moved people so much.
Thank you. And Maestro, thank you for joining us today. Now, Peter, I know that you're on the Upper West Side, and Maestro, you're coming to us live from Montreal today, is that right? Maestro Yannick?
Oh, yes.
Yes,
yes.
hi, there you are.
Yes. Yes, I am in Montreal. It's it's raining cats and dogs at the moment here. And last week we had snow still. So yeah, not exactly the perfect weather to be here, but at least, you know, I'm near my family, and my cats are really appreciating my seeing me all the time.
Maestro, we had, for the At-Home Gala, 40 plus artists, in addition to the wonderful Met Orchestra and the Met Opera Chorus all together. Most of these performances were live, including Lisette's beautiful performance that we're going to hear a clip of later. But the one that captivated the attention of the entire world was this pre-recorded video. It's just this amazing composite of our Met Orchestra and Met Opera Chorus under your baton, singing and playing Verdi's Va Pensiero. And I wonder if I can just share a clip with everybody of this beautiful, beautiful rendering. So I'll just get the screen share going here. One moment, everyone. And,
Dan, you're on mute.
thank you. There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Maestro, and the orchestra and the chorus for that soul-stirring performance. We had a number of questions about this for both Peter and Yannick. So the first of these is maybe a more technical question from Bob Dorenbos, which is, please tell us how you edited together the 90+ individual recordings of Va Pensiero and got them synchronized under Yannick's baton. So that's a good starting point.
Yeah, of course. And hello, Dan. Hello, Camille. Hello, everyone. You know, I saw a lot of this spontaneous gesture, which really, right from the start of this pandemic, when the stages all around the world became dark, there was an immediate effusion, and which is great, of artists all over the world, and some orchestras doing it quite early, in doing a piece of music, which some of you would have seen. Maybe there was some Ravel Bolero, or there were also smaller pieces at Appalachian Spring, Copeland, but this usually was a bit more easily edited because it was with what we call a click track. So basically the musician has a click, click, click in his headphones or her headphones while playing the music. So then an editor can edit this relatively simply because this can just line up. The problem with the click track is that it's actually not very real. I mean, it's beautiful as an exercise to do, and I don't mean to underestimate what people have done, but we wanted to push this further, Peter and I said we should definitely have it as more an experience of me conducting and having our beautiful artists of the chorus and the orchestra reacting to my conducting. So I conducted first as air conducting, so with silence, imagining the music in my head. Then Thomas Lausman, our head of music staff, played the piece like a reduction of the orchestra and the chorus, you know, for all the excerpts, reacting to my video. And then every member of the orchestra and the chorus was given my video conducting. So they would sing or play, looking at me conducting, but having in their headphones also the piano. So it took more time to edit. Video-wise, the genius Pete Scalzitti did it for us, and another genius we have on our team, which is David Frost, with the help of another genius from the UK, who I know, Andrew Meller, did the sound. So 3 people really worked intensively to make this work. So it's a mixture of the humanity of our chemistry, which comes across, the skill of everyone being able to play from home and sing from home, and those editors who also did their really important part.
Peter, wow. Of course, I assume that hundreds of hands touched that, but it was so seamless in its presentation. Peter, we have a question from Cynthia Bagby about how you decided on the order of the performances, the 2 of you, for the gala at large, not simply adding Va Pensiero, and then how you rehearsed both the Va Pensiero section and then also any of the other ensemble pieces. So these are both very exciting questions. Thanks, Cynthia.
Well, I mean, the ensemble pieces were already prepared, so
right.
as Yannick described. But the order was driven largely by wanting to have variety of musical choices, and wanting geographically to have an interesting progression of connections between singers. We thought it would be quite wonderful, and it turned out to even be more than quite wonderful, to have the singers handing off to each other. Because for the singers, this was a moment of great freedom and revelation. You know, not only were the audiences moved by this injection of cultural solace into their lives, but the singers themselves were liberated by participating in this event. Many of them, who, you know, it was during the 8 or 9 days leading up to the event, I spent a large part of each day with a technical team and our director Gary, visiting the homes via Skype or Zoom calls to set the singers up in their various environments to make sure that they were in the right place in their room, whatever part of their house they were going to be performing from, and various other technical things that we had to work out. And many of them said to me, you know, I'm so happy to not be tutoring my children for a change, to not have to be cleaning bathrooms. Today I can actually sing, and it was really kind of a great release for them. And then when they actually saw each other, which only happened on the actual day of the performance, as they handed off to each other the way, you know, the hosts on CNN or CNBC might to each other, they were thrilled to see each other. You know, it was a celebration, and that in turn made it so much more emotional and moving for the audience. So it was it's one of those great events where the ends are far greater than what you anticipated when you start.
And it's true that the rehearsal aspect of it, most of the rehearsal happened, like Peter, you just said, which is more on the technical rehearsal to make sure that, you know, the run of show would be smooth for all of you, and that this would be also prepared for every eventualities of some internet connections breaking. And there were several moments where it actually almost did, but it, you know, 99% of it stayed, you know, the way it should. And a final word about the live versus recorded. One of the limitations of the technology at the moment, although Peter is determined to try and change that, is that ensemble playing and singing on the internet is not for the moment really possible. I'm sure some of you watching us today have tried to sing Happy Birthday virtually in the past few months. If you try to be together and sing Happy Birthday, it never really quite lines up. And that is the thing. So that's why the ensemble pieces with the orchestra and the chorus had to be done before. It was the only aspect that was not live. And as such, it also meant that it was not rehearsed. So still, you know, there's a lot of accomplishment, even though it wasn't live in all this.
Truly. And one of the most talked about, one of the most celebrated live performances of the At-Home Gala was by soprano Lisette Oropesa, who is joining us live from Santa Fe today. Hi, Lisette, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well, guys, and everyone. Thank you. Maestro Nézet-Séguin, it's wonderful to see you. And I'm here looking at the sunshine and hearing the birds singing, and I feel guilty.
Where are you today?
Santa Fe, New Mexico. I just really like it here.
It's sunny in New York.
Well, Lisette,
I said sunny in New York today also.
Oh, yeah, good.
But it's great to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisette, you're joined by your husband, correct?
Yes. My name is Stephen Harris.
Stephen. Hi, Stephen.
That's
and also some technical wizardry there that we'll get to. Lisette, as you can well imagine, there were a number of questions about your performance of the Meyerbeer. I want to share a clip that we have quickly before we get to those questions, selfishly because I loved it so much. So let's do that. One moment, everybody. Oh, wow, wonderful.
Thanks. Thank you. Oh, you picked the fun part.
It was all the fun part.
Right.
So tell us how you came to this selection, how you selected this piece for the At-Home Gala. What inspired you to pick it?
Well, you know, my first initial thought was, gee, a lot of the repertoire that I sing has a lot of cadenzas in it, and I'm gonna have a very hard time timing my cadenzas to the piano, and this piece was no exception to that, but I wanted to find something that I hadn't really sung too much before, and I've been kind of singing a lot of Meyerbeer lately, the last year or two of my career, and I did Robert le Diable in its entirety in concert, and the famous aria from it is not actually this one, but it's Robert toi que j'aime. But I thought, because I knew we had like a time constraint, we were all trying to keep our arias around 5 minutes, you know, and if I were to pick most of my arias, they were all 10 minutes long, you know, and I didn't want to just sing something clipped. So even though this aria really actually is 10 minutes long, I did do a cut version, but I figured since it was interesting and unique, and if I could time the cadenzas right, it could be an interesting selection that doesn't get heard very often. So I was trying to bring a little bit of the French spirit to the gala.
Well, you pulled it off beautifully. So many of the questions are, of course, about your setup with your accompanist. And Steve and I understand you had a great deal to do with that. So can you walk us through how that worked? Was he live? Was that pre-recorded or what?
Yeah, that was all pre-recorded. I'd come up with this idea as soon as we heard that the Met was going to do this. We were like, okay, how can we make this interesting? Like, what are we going to do that's going to set us apart from everybody else? And so my thought was like, we have this big screen TV at home, which was kind of new for us. It's like our first big screen TV, you know? And we're like, okay, well, let's put something on there. And we thought it'd be a really great idea to pre-film the accompaniment. And so we went over to Michael Borowitz's house, our accompanist, and I brought 2 cameras, our iPhones, all my setup equipment, microphones, everything. And we just played through it and recorded everything. And then I took it back home, mixed it, mixed the different views from the different cameras, and mixed the audio because I had multiple microphones, and put it up on the television and so we wanted to honor Michael being also in the show as well. And since we couldn't bring him to our house because we don't have like a grand piano or anything like that. So this was definitely the best way to make that feel like it was virtually virtual. We had 2 virtual, is the inception of virtual reality.
Wonderful.
I have to say that I think you sort of ran circles around your colleagues from a technical point of view. Many of your fellow artists who sang, spectacularly, had to really relying upon boombox playbacks. So when we got to you, I remember when we were rehearsing, we were bowled over by the technical prowess that Stephen provided there. So and then of course the icing on the cake was your incredible singer. But bravo, Stephen, that was really quite something.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisette, I have a fun question from Carol Domina, who asks, if you had been asked to prepare a second song, an encore at the At-Home Gala, what would you have selected? And would you have used the same setup?
Well, the setup was great. And I mean, and the way that I timed it was, I'm lucky that I have a pianist like Michael, who is very sensitive and who I've worked with many times. So I went over to his house, sang it through for him once, full voice, and then I basically muted myself and he played while I kind of hummed along as quietly as possible, especially during the cadenzas, because if you notice, there are 3 or 4 cadenzas. But anyway, that's how that timing went well. I just wanted to say that I'm so lucky that he's such a brilliant musician. But on top of that, what else would I have wanted to sing? I couldn't bring myself to sing anything sad. I have to be honest. Like, I had a hard time finding an aria that, didn't speak to the moment, because I was getting very emotional watching the gala, because I was kind of in the last half. And as I was watching, and even just now watching Va Pensiero, I get so teary-eyed just even thinking about it. But I might have enjoyed singing what I sang for a different gala in Italy, and that was from the Ballad of Baby Doe, the Willow Song. But that one, again, it's kind of sad, and seeing in the context of the way the Met Gala works, because I think the issue with this virtual life is that you don't see what the other person is doing. Like, we didn't know what everyone else was going to do, what everyone else would sing, what order, anything like that. It was like, you do your own thing, and then we're going to stick it in this group thing, and it's all going to flow together. But we don't get to see and be inspired by each other as we're performing. So I felt watching the gala, like I said, it was the fabric of the way it flowed was so incredibly moving and sad and touching and heartbreaking, because seeing people, for example, watching the instrumentalists play in their homes by themselves and then putting it together as an ensemble, like, I just saw them as young college students rehearsing in their, they probably went back to when they used to sit at home and play their scales and play alone. And then at some point they'd get to grow out of that and get to sit and be in an ensemble and hear each other in the moment and play and make music. And that's one of the beautiful things of ensemble that I miss so much, that it's even as a soloist, I mean, you hear the other musicians, you react and you play with them, and that's what's so hard for me. But I would have sung the Ballad of Baby Doe to answer her question. Thank you. Sorry, I just had to say that.
No, I agree. We were completely out of tissues in my house. Alice Richards is asking, this is a great question, Peter, Yannick, everyone really. How long did the At-Home Gala take to organize? And then also, Peter, I just wanted to circle back, because you had mentioned rehearsing the technological aspects of it. How do you even rehearse something like that? So I guess, what was the trajectory from start to finish, and then how long did it take to rehearse the technical elements?
The whole thing was put together in about 2 weeks, I would say. we invited all the artists. I spent a couple of hours one night sending emails to everyone, and within the next day or two, everyone had accepted. And then we set about figuring out, while we were working out the technical logistics, we were also working out the repertoire, making sure no singers were repeating themselves. We asked each singer what they would like to sing, and several of them gave us different choices. If they offered the same piece, we would diplomatically negotiate in such a way that everyone was doing their own unique piece. And that also helped dictate ultimately the running order of the program. The rehearsals really were more technical rehearsals because these were all solo performances. So there was a certain amount of work that had to be done for those artists who did not have their own accompanist already prepared. Thomas Lausman, who Yannick mentioned earlier, is the head of our music staff, and several of his colleagues did something similar to what Lisette did with her pianist. They would have telephone consultations, and then Thomas and his colleagues would create tracks and send them via the internet to the artists. And then when we rehearsed with them, we would make sure, the technical rehearsals really were about camera placement, making sure the sound was okay. It's remarkable when you consider that this whole thing was basically shot on iPhones and iPads, all live. It was an incredible kind of global accomplishment, but on the utilizing relatively low tech.
Peter, can you talk about, it was so heartfelt for all of us. Everybody was crying. I got so many emails about people crying through the whole thing, watching it a second time, but how the artists respond to you, because they seemed, when they were handing it off, they seemed, and Yannick, they seemed so heartfelt to each other in the way they talked to one another, because they miss being together. They're so used to being together. So could you gentlemen talk a little bit about what their response to you was about that, about how they felt about it?
Yannick, do you want to?
Oh, well, I think both of us, both Peter and I, we of course were in touch with all of them by text, by email, by phone calls, some of them even during the gala and some right after. I think we were all, Peter was mentioning rightly that we imagined this as something big and something that would reach the hearts of the people, but I don't think we were prepared in a way for how it did strike an essential chord of need from not only the audience, but yes, the artists, the community, of feeling that there's only one big family of opera in the world. And one of the particularities of what we're living at the moment is that the whole world, at least for a few weeks, was stopped and on pause. And of course, locally, it takes different shapes, and some parts of the society suffer from it differently. But the artistic community and the world of culture and all the artists are affected by this kind of silence on the stages is really very hard for everyone. And I think that some artists are more willing maybe to try something new, and some were more scared. But all of this helped everyone feeling out of their shell. And I think it was inspiring for more initiatives afterwards. And yes, it's everybody was surprised in a way at how moving it was and how it felt good to see their colleagues. And I think what Lisette just said was beautiful about the lack of getting inspired by each other, which is at the core. But then yet again, this technology is forcing us to imagine creative ways which are of course not replacing being all together in the same room. But at least it creates maybe even more, it's making us realize even more the need for music and the need for being with each other. And a gala like this just made us feel together even though we're separated. So yeah, the artists, I believe, none of them said to us, I will never do this again. I think, some of them needed more convincing by Peter, And I think they were all just so happy they participated.
I think you know, in a few cases, they were nervous that it wouldn't work, and they, you know, nobody likes to be involved in a failing operation. So they, but the great thing, I think the key to, in retrospect, the key to the warmth and connections that were exhibited between the artists as they passed the baton, so to speak, from one home to another, is that they really are members of this great artistic family. I mean, the Metropolitan Opera is an international opera house where these singers all perform in a season together. They all know each other. You know, typically if they were at the Met, they would all be, even if they were singing in different performances, they would be rubbing elbows in the cafeteria. So, you know, this, for them, this was a homecoming in a way. And they are part of a large family. That is what makes the Met such a special place.
Could you also mention that 750,000 people signed in, but all the different countries, what it sort of made up? You had contributions from so many. It was just an incredible outpouring. Do you want to speak about that for a second?
Well, the one country that I was most impressed with was the Vatican, because we know that the Pope is an opera fan. So we were hoping that maybe he was himself tuning into this. You know, when he was the Cardinal Archbishop of Argentina, he was known for going to the opera and known for listening to the Met, I'm told. So we hope that maybe he was one of our viewers. But it was very exciting to know that so many people are connected to the Met, you know, at one time. That's what makes the Met such a special company too, and that we have, you know, we have a global audience because of our radio broadcasts and the long history of them, and our live and HD transmissions that are seen around the world. So we've sort of, and ever since we've started these streams of operas every night back in the middle of March, we've had millions and millions and millions of people tuning in every day. So it's ironic, paradoxical in a way, and certainly not a replacement for the real thing, but we actually have more people connecting to the Met right now because we have a captive audience of people around the world at home for the wrong reasons, but who are plugging into opera in ways that many people are listening to the Met who've never went to an opera before. So it's an interesting time.
I have a question for, I think this is really for all three of you also, about the fair amount of art direction, or how did you set the scene with these different artists? One of the great joys of this gala was being able to see everyone in their home environment. I'm thinking of Roberto Alagna's library, or Peter Mattei's beautiful lake house. Did you say, not that wall, this wall? How did that go?
Yeah, I mean, there was a certain amount of that. I mean, a lot of it was practically driven. And Peter Mattei was determined that he wanted to see a Swedish sunset behind him, which requires an enormous amount of light being on his face so that he wouldn't be a silhouette. But at one point he sent me a text message which showed an arsenal of lighting equipment that was any movie studio would be proud of. I don't know where he found it, but every artist, you know, it was a question of practicality, where the best internet connection in their house was. I know Diana Damrau and Nicholas Teste, her husband, who performed in their kitchen, which everyone thought was quite charming. There was a reason for that. It was the only place they could get reception. So there was a reason behind everything, and some of them were practical and others were aesthetic.
And Maestro, I feel like we have gotten almost a full tour of your home in Montreal and all of the different performances you've given now. So is every vantage point is a good vantage point for you? So far, so good?
Yeah, it's not bad. My connection is not bad. But, you know, I just wanted to be near the piano for this, because I think it makes sense for our gala, when it's really about the music, to be there. One thing I didn't want to do was to play live. Maybe now when I played the piano with David Chan for the Méditation by Thais and by Massenet. this was pre-recorded too, but maybe now I get inspired by all the amazing artists like Aaron Morley playing live and Matthew Polenzani, and who else played? Günther Grosbock. So maybe next round I will be convinced to play live.
Well, that's a perfect segue to the most asked question. The most submitted question was, will there be another At-Home Gala? How soon? How long will you make us wait? Et cetera, et cetera.
And can we see this one again?
Yes, and will this one be restreamed?
Well, it's our hope that we will be able to perhaps arrange an encore showing of this. It's not set yet. One of the disadvantages of putting something together in such a short time frame is that, and because it was such a highly speculative venture for many of the participants, to get everyone to agree to try it, it was done kind of as an experiment, and so we didn't ask for permission for additional showings because we thought that might make it too complicated initially. Now that it's been such a great success, we hope that we can find a way to have it seen yet again. As far as future galas, it's always difficult when you do something as successful as this that you don't want to be a pale imitation of what you've done already. So I think we have to think of something a little bit different. But we're certainly trying to think of new ideas, and Yannick and I are talking about all kinds of things.
Well, this is a ready audience. Lisette, I have a question for you about how you kept in spite of a pre-recorded track, the performance seems so spontaneous. How do you achieve that?
Yeah, well, I did kind of set and practice the timings for my cadenzas and everything. And when I went to my pianist's house and I sang through it for him, I tried to just remember more or less what I did. And then I had the recording. We actually went to his house and recorded it a week before the gala. So I had a week to sit at home and practice it and really get the timing as solid as possible. But I also wanted to, one of the things that one of the director notes actually that we had during our rehearsal was to just make sure that I referred to the pianist behind me, that I didn't forget that it was there. And I'm like, you know what, that's so true, because I was trying to make it seem like it was spontaneous, but also it was important to feel like there was still connection. Like we had practiced, like we knew what we were gonna do. We were waiting for each other, even though, Michael had done it a week before. So I wanted to just keep that alive, that connection alive. And I was glad to have that suggestion made to me, because I wasn't sure. It is a little strange, I have to be honest. It is a little strange to sing at a lens because we couldn't see anyone, and so it was just like all I'm doing is singing at a lens. I'm not used to that. I'm used to singing, and especially in your home, it's like you're used to singing to either a black crowd, like a black mass of at best with lights in your face, but you can't really see faces, or where you can actually see faces and reactions. And to just sing at a lens was a little hard for me, and I didn't want it to be like. So I wanted to just kind of keep it like seem still like a concert, a performance, and I don't know. I hope that I achieved that. I got a lot of really nice messages, and people were really happy with it all overall. It was I'm just so happy that I was a part of it. Like I'll never forget this ever.
No. It was a very special performance. Yannick, a question that's come in for you is, how did you react the first time you saw the Va Pensiero compilation? Everyone, your orchestra, your chorus back together again under your virtual baton. How did that stir you? What did that feel like?
Oh, I mean, all three tracks, four actually, involving the musicians and the chorus, were. I really believed this could be achieved, and I really believed in my concept of making it as real as possible. But, when this came back, it was incredibly emotional. First, because obviously this is such a sad moment for all of us not being able to be on stage. And, what I do for a living and what we all do is actually, especially if you're a member of a chorus or an orchestra, you need groups. You're actually the essence of what's forbidden at the moment, which is really being close together in order to make music. So to see all the individuals, they're separate was really moving. On the other hand, it gave me a lot of obviously joy to see that our connection is already so strong after 2 years together, and the few years before starting to get to know each other is already so strong that it's actually was possible to do this. And it was surprisingly real, it just felt like, yeah, no big deal. Everybody can be together, as actually it takes so much to be able to achieve that level. And yeah, it's still very moving for me to see all of this. But it's uplifting because it makes us, a time like this makes us reflect on the past a lot, of course, our memories of what it was before, makes us reflect on the future a lot, because that is, like Peter said, a beacon of hope. And the present and the now is actually trying to merge these together with whatever means we have at our disposal. And I'm very, very touched and humbled that we were able to achieve this.
And Peter, how did it affect you to see this all come together? I know you were both living it live, you were in it the whole time, but as it was rolling out, did you find yourself moved by the breadth of it, by the performers?
I found it incredibly moving every day when we were rehearsing and visiting the individual artists and hearing them sing in their environments and imagining what it was going to be like. It was really moved me deeply, and more so than many things in my memory. When we actually got to the show, I was so driven by adrenaline to make sure that it would actually happen. Yannick and I were on a feed from the director. The whole communication systems for the show was an app on our iPhones that had which functioned as a walkie-talkie between assistant directors, the director, producers, technical people. So we were hearing things that were potentially going wrong while we were hosting, including singers whose Skype connection wouldn't get connected through, and so the
yeah, I remember. I don't want to interrupt, but I remember, at one point, I don't remember who was singing before Bryn fell, but then 20 seconds before, Gary was saying, "We lost Bryn.
Right.
We lost Bryn." And then 20 seconds, then Peter, he had a plan B, of course, you rest assured. But then, 20 seconds in, said, "No, Bryn is back." Okay, so all of this, so that made it, yes, a lot of adrenaline.
So we had this. I had this plan, which was I had a series of short video documentary moments that in the event we lost a singer, it would come back to me and I would introduce a different segment. So the first one was from our film, The Opera House, which was a very funny sequence in which Zeffirelli, in rehearsing Antony and Cleopatra at the new house, had great technical troubles, which I was going to liken to the technical troubles we were having, should they have been taking place, which ends with Zeffirelli suggesting that the Met's new turntable be thrown into the Hudson River. So we had a series of these inserts ready to go in the event things went wrong. So we were prepared, but it still nonetheless was incredibly moving, and it was a relief when it was over too.